Hey there, welcome to Black Gumbo. I'm going to talk about using mulch in your container plants. Let's go see. So mulch is something you put on your garden. You usually buy it in bags at the garden center. A truck will come and dump you a load of mulch, but mulch can be anything that's ground up wood chips or bark. Usually you see shredded bark and grass, leaves, whatever. And you put them in your garden. You put them in your flower beds, and they suppress weeds and they help your plants to thrive. But I also use a lot of mulch in my container plants, and my containers have benefited from that. So that's what I'm going to talk about today is should you and how should you mulch in your container plants. But specifically I'm going to use my recycled mulch, which is from last year, and we're going to see if that works this year. This here is a lot of the mulch that I scraped off of these beds from last year. And so this is year-old wood chips, grass, leaves. Most of the grass is no longer in there. And there's remnants of my cover crop, which was cowpeas. Lots of cowpea stems and some pods and stuff in there. That's all good stuff. So lots of good biology going on in here. So this straw-looking stuff, some grass clippings and some cowpea stuff. That's all good. And so I'm going to use this again as mulch this year. And it'll save me some money, and I don't have to use this stuff out of the bag, which I used last year. It's good wood chip mulch, but if I got free stuff, I'm going to use that first. Now there are downsides to recycling. Sometimes if you had some diseased plants, or you've got something unseemly in here, like different kinds of spores or fungi or things that will attack your plant, especially if this comes from a bed that had the same kind of plant in it last year. You could run into trouble, but in a container plant, I'm not really worried about that, because these are such a small soil sample, a bit of soil, we can usually manage any troubles that come up. And so I'm going to mulch these heavily, and that'll help retain moisture and stabilize the temperature of these. I have put them in 5-gallon buckets that are white, and I like these as opposed to the Home Depot orange ones. Oranges and reds really absorb the light, and in turn they absorb heat. The white ones tend to reflect heat. That gets real important here in the summertime when these bake in the sun, and this white just helps to reduce the wild fluctuations in temperature, and so does mulch. Now, even if you have a plant that doesn't need to be constantly moist or kept in water or kept in moist soil, mulch is still a good idea for weed suppression, but also it acts as an insulator on top. And so it helps that soil not fluctuate as much. You're still going to get fluctuation, you can't help it, especially when you're in a container. But when you mulch, you're going to help reduce that range. I like a 1 to 2 inch layer, sometimes even 3 inches. But this stuff is pretty fine, and it'll form a pretty good mat. And so about a 1.5 to 2 inch layer is all I'm going to put on there. And there we go. That bird's eye pepper is ready to go. So what I've done is taken all my recycled mulch that was on my garden beds last year. I've put it on my pots now, my potted plant. You can see here I have a pretty thick layer here. Let me show you where you can actually see about how thick it is. So I'm down to about to there on my finger. So that's about 1.5 to 2 inches of mulch there. And so that's going to suppress weeds. All of this is already on its way to being broken down. There's already some good microorganisms. You can see some fungal life already at work in there. And so this is good stuff. It's going to be healthy. It's going to be protective, and that's just going to help this pepper plant to really take off. So there we go. Well, I want to show you what it looks like after a year, what your mulch is going to look like after a year, maybe even 2 years. So let me show you in my fig pile of mulch. This is fresh mulch. This is wood chip mulch. And I've put this on top of this freshly planted fig. And this is a black Italian. Looking forward to that one. But this is pretty thick too. I've got a good 2.5 to 3 inch layer of mulch here, because it's really critical for figs to have as stable of an environment as they can within their little pot. And so this is going to help this fig to retain moisture. And in the summers, these fig plants of mine, they really suffer from the sunlight, and especially those in those little tiny pots over there. Those guys really suffer when it gets hot. And so it's time to put them in it's time to move them up to a gallon pot or a 5 gallon pot. So yeah, here's some wood chip over here that is a couple of years old, and so you can see we already get some weeds that come through there. But after 2 years, I mean, this is all I get. I get some of these I forget what these are called. They're actually a beneficial weed, these little shamrock shaped things. But I get these little dandelion-like flowers with a taproot, and they're pretty easy to pull out. And occasionally you'll get a crazy, there's one over there. Occasionally you'll get a crazy patch of some grass that was blown in by the wind. But usually all you get after a year, this is actually a 2 year, maybe even a 3 year. I'd have to look at my records. And so you can see it's formed a pretty dense mat. And as it's begun to break down, you can see it's starting to break down and get thin. You can see the roots of my fig plant, and you can see the mulch that's been broken down here. It's very fine now. This could use another layer of mulch. But it's lasted me a good 2 to 3 years with this wood chip stuff. Now the leaves aren't going to last that long. They're going to break down over one season. But the benefits are, I don't have a lot of weed pulling here in these pots. Here's another one. That's a 2-year-old mulch. That 2-year-old mulch. Let's see how deep it is now. It's not that very deep because it's broken down from the bottom up, and we're right there to the potting mix right there. And the roots of the fig tree are just under the surface there. But this has protected my plant. And this guy was this thin when I got it, and I potted it. You can see that it's really done well in this pot. So it's time to put more mulch in these pots, these figs. Ones that need to be up potted need to be up potted, but this mulch has really made a difference in keeping these things not just alive, but really thriving and growing the way I like them to grow. Here is wood chips that's been in for 1 year. This is a hunt cutting. I put this cutting in 2017 is when I started the cutting. I up potted this in 2018, and in 1 year I've only got a couple of weeds in here that I have to deal with. But yeah, this stuff has been real helpful. This wood chips, that wood chip has been really good. I have also mulched my vineyard, my micro vineyard. You can see my vines are coming in and things are going well. Man, this has been a really good vine. All these vines have performed really well. But what I've done is I just piled up a bunch of wood chip mulch, about 4 inches worth, around these new vines, so that the grass, so they could get established. Once these are established, and I'll probably give them another year or two with the protection of the little mulch bed. Once they're established, I don't have to worry. I can just put a little protective ring around there of PVC or something so I don't weed eat them, and just let the grass take over. But yeah, this wood chip mulch has protected these and given these plants a chance to compete and to take off and not have to deal with all this grass and compete with the surrounding growth. And you can see after, this is their 3rd year, and it's still pretty thick, and down there I've got some real nice loamy fertile soil. So always a benefit to use mulch. So you should always use your yard as a resource. And in my yard I got an oak tree, and the oak tree sheds its leaves every year just when I need it to shed. I have all these leaves, and I don't even really crush them up. I just mow them and put them in here in this ring. And what I use on the top becomes mulch, and as the grass begins to grow a little more, I get more of a grass leaf mixture, which is even better. But yeah, what I don't use becomes compost. It breaks down a little bit. These oak leaves are very slow to break down. You saw that I used last year's oak leaves in my pepper plants, and they're not even quite broken down yet, but they're on their way. So it lasts a good long while, and it's free. So I'm a firm believer that we don't cut our grass, we harvest our yard. So that's what I've got. I've even got some of my neighbor brought me some leaves too, so I'm real grateful for that. Almost out. There we are, everything's watered in. Healthy. Thanks for joining me today on Black Gumbo. I'm glad you stopped by. Thank you for all the subscriptions and for all your encouraging comments and for the advice that we've been sharing in the comments section. I appreciate that. So if you have advice, if you have questions, or if you have any kind of anything that you think we should be doing better, please leave us a comment. We want to be humble and teachable, and we want to learn how to garden better so that we can share it with all our friends. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, it's really helpful if you would. That way we'll show up in your YouTube feed, and if you click the notification bell, you'll get notified. And join us on Facebook. We don't post a whole lot on Facebook, but I like to notify people when we do post videos on Facebook, and sometimes you get some news there. We're also on Instagram, and I share a lot of photos. I love the beauty of the garden. I like to share photos there. So just look up Black Gumbo Southern Gardening, and you'll find us pretty much anywhere we are. So thanks again for joining us. We're very grateful, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.